Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Wednesdays wherever you may be across this great land. Two big stories that I want to hit today that I think are important, substantial, and emblematic of where we are as a country, unfortunately. The first one is this Carson King guy in Iowa who raised millions of dollars for an Iowa Children's Hospital and has been outed for tweets that he posted when he was 16 years old. I'm going to go all in on this one, and then I'm going to try to be the most sane person in an insane world to walk you through why this Donald Trump impeachment talk is so utterly ridiculous. But I want to start with this Iowa story. If you're not familiar with this story, it's one of the best of sports this fall and this year. Before the Iowa State game, a kid held up a sign at College Gameday asking for more money for Busch Light beer. The picture went viral and people started to send money like crazy. After he got a little bit of money coming in, he said that he had decided to donate it all to the Iowa Children's Hospital there, I believe, in Ames, Iowa. It was an incredibly positive story. It rose all the way up to over $1 million in charitable donations that had been put out. And then what happens? And then, out of pure spite and I believe a failure to understand how to use social media, the Des Moines Register, a local newspaper, decides that they are going to go out. Iowa City newspaper, let me clear that. Iowa City Hospital, let me clear that up. Des Moines, Iowa newspaper decides that they're going to do an article on this guy, and they said they needed to do a background check on him. Now, I don't really understand why, when you're writing a positive story about over $1 million being raised for charity for an Iowa Children's Hospital, you need to do a background check. Maybe, possibly, you could do a criminal background check to make sure that this guy is not a child abuser or something like that, so that if he was around children, you didn't have to worry about things. Maybe you do research into that. Maybe. But they decided, the writer did, to go through all of his tweets, and they found two offensive tweets that he had posted from when he was 16 years old that, according to everyone who has actually seen them, I haven't even seen them, directly resulted and seemed to be connected to a Tosh.0 television special that was considered to be offensive, okay? Now, before I go into this specific case, let me make a statement that I think is important here. We got to stop going through teenagers' tweets when they become adults and turning them into stories, period. It doesn't matter who those people are, all right? Moreover, if you are an adult and you are going through looking at 15 and 16-year-old kid tweets to try to embarrass people who are doing good things in their life as adults, what are you doing with your life? The reporter who did this, by the way, it turns out got the tables turned on him and had way more offensive tweets that he had put out from the Des Moines Register reporter than this kid ever had before. But what in the world do you gain? The kid ended up having to have a press conference to apologize for his past tweets, and Anheuser-Busch pulled their relationship with this kid. Now, I'm furious over the entire way this story happened, and I hope it's a turning point in the way we respond to cancel culture, because we're getting things wrong. We are getting things fundamentally wrong in the way that we allow social media to dictate decisions in our society. Let me just say this. For hundreds of years, we've had a criminal justice system. And as part of that criminal justice system, we have made the decision that if you are a minor and you commit an actual crime, robbery, assault, stealing a car, whatever it is, if you do that when you're 15 or 16 years old, your record gets expunged when you become an adult, because we believe that minors, by and large, most of the time, should not be held to the standard of adults when it comes to criminal conduct. If that is our standard, if our standard for people actually committing crimes is that we wipe them clean when they turn 18, how is it that we live in an era when what you tweet when you are a teenager, you are held responsible for, but the crimes that you commit when you are a teenager, you are not held responsible for? We are punishing words in social media accounts more aggressively than we are punishing actual crimes. At a minimum, every single member of the media should have to agree not to write about kids' tweets, all right? If you are a minor, it should never be a story what you tweeted before you reach the age of majority. Now, there are some kids who watch and listen to this show. What I would encourage you to do is when you are getting ready to apply to college, wipe clean everything you've ever tweeted before. Wipe clean your social media accounts, because there are people who don't like you who will try to get you in trouble for things that you have tweeted when you were young and dumb, okay? I think, personally, we should be ridiculing these individuals who want to be a part of the cancel culture. I also think we need to talk about statutes of limitations on things that people said that can't come back up and allow somebody to be offended a decade later. I'll give you an example. Kevin Hart's a comedian. If you were offended when he sent out tweets that were considered to be homophobic in jokes, then that's fine. You had the right to be offended a decade ago. You don't have the right to go track down something somebody said a decade ago on social media when they get announced as the host of the Oscars and say, oh my God, this guy can't host the Oscars because a decade ago he said something that hurts my feelings today. You can't be retroactively offended in our society. You can't seek out something that is not a story, go grab it, bring it back into the modern day, and say, oh my God, I'm so offended by this, okay? You are a complete and total loser if you do that, and if you do it, then you deserve to be ridiculed, not the people you're going after. And I don't care what the politics are involved in this, whether you're Republican, Democrat, any of these things, okay? This is beyond a shadow of a doubt the way that we should roll going forward, okay? And so as you break this down, I hope that the Des Moines Register and the response to this kid who only got famous because he raised $1 million to help a children's hospital will actually make people take a pause and say, what are we doing here? Because I think what happened is social media got dropped right up on our society, and people had no idea how to respond to it. There were no rules. There were no opportunities to actually figure out how adults were going to handle a situation like social media. And I think as things have gone forward, it's become patently absurd. I also think Anheuser-Busch deciding to disassociate from this kid is utterly ridiculous. You are a beer company. Your goal is to get people to drink alcohol and consume your product as much as possible. Of all the companies in the world, how many of their executives have kids who tweeted stupid stuff when they were 16? How many of them tweeted and did stupid things when they were 16 if they would have been of this era? We got to stop treating teenagers like they are adults. We got to stop looking for the worst in every single human being. Social media, we need some rules that make sense, whether it's statutes of limitations on offense, whether it is recognizing that if we're going to treat actual crimes as expungible material, then certainly we should expunge what teenagers tweet, because that is much less significant than what is going on in this scenario. Okay, so I'm fired up about this. I'm going to write it tomorrow. I talked about it on OutKick the coverage. I think reasonable people, good and reasonable people, didn't want this kid who raised $1 million to get treated like he's running for the freaking president of the United States. And I think any reporter that thought, you know what I need to do? I need to go back through every teenager's tweets that this kid has ever sent. I think it makes absolutely no sense. We punish actions in this country. A tweet is not really an action in terms of a criminal act, all right? So that is my thoughts on the Iowa situation. Now, speaking of insanity, all right, let me give you a background as we talk about Donald Trump's impeachment. I am 40 years old now. When I was in college, the last time a president got impeached, I was working on Capitol Hill in a Democratic congressman's office. And I watched up close, literally went to the hearings on impeachment. I was working on responding to all the constituent outrage surrounding Bill Clinton lying to the Ken Starr investigators and the decision to impeach Bill Clinton. At 19 or 20 years old, whatever it was, I did not support the impeachment of Bill Clinton. I thought it was a waste of time. I believe all of this focus on Donald Trump now is a waste of time and makes absolutely no sense. Donald Trump, even if he is impeached by the Democratic House of Representatives, is not going to be removed from office. It isn't going to happen. There are not going to be 67 senators who believe that Donald Trump should be removed from office. So, this is a big charade. This is a big show. I feel like it's designed to increase ratings for Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN, and to prey on the interest levels of a gullible American public that doesn't know any better and actually thinks there's legitimately something that's going to change here. I've said it for a while. I will continue to say it. If you want to beat Donald Trump, the best way to beat Donald Trump is to beat him at the ballot box in November of 2020. This looks insanely desperate. It looks like Democrats have come to the conclusion we can't beat Trump. We got to try to do whatever we can to remove him. All of these different scandals, this one is not even as big as the Mueller report. It's not remotely close, okay? This whole Ukraine thing is going to be done in short order because Trump already released a classified version of their conversation, and it doesn't rise to any kind of level of misconduct which would bring about any sort of actual removal from office. So I think what is unfortunate here, unfortunate is Democrats have so lost their minds that they aren't aware that what happened with Bill Clinton is likely to happen with Donald Trump as well. And that is, ultimately, by following the impeachment path, it's going to strengthen the person you're trying to impeach more than it's going to strengthen your hand. If you remember or studied the Bill Clinton impeachment, Bill Clinton's popularity ratings soared as he was impeached by Republicans in Congress, okay? This is an unvarnished truth. It was insanely unpopular with the American public. And I don't know if there's so many people who are young out there that don't remember how this played out, but I've seen a lot of young people, like college-age kids, hopping in my Twitter and being like, well, that's not true because the Republicans won the election in 2000 and Al Gore lost. First of all, if Bill Clinton had if Bill Clinton had been able to run in 2000, he would have won re-election. Okay, it wouldn't have been a close election between Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. George W. Bush was a better campaigner and a better candidate than Al Gore was. Notwithstanding that fact, Al Gore still won the popular vote, and I believe if the butterfly ballot in Palm Beach County had not existed, if you want to go back and study it, it's a fascinating case to read, then Al Gore would have won in Florida. I believe more people in Florida, which ultimately decided this election, went to vote for Al Gore on that election day in Florida than went to go vote for George W. Bush. But it was such an insanely close election that ultimately George W. Bush triumphed. But I don't believe that was because of impeachment. And again, if Bill Clinton had been able to run, he would have been even more popular than George W. Bush was. He would have beaten what Al Gore produced. He was a better politician. He was a better leader. He was a more acceptable and attractive candidate to a larger group of people. Okay? So, I say that as somebody who worked on Al Gore's campaign in the 2000 election and as someone who was involved in Democratic politics working on Capitol Hill when Bill Clinton was impeached. This is a bad decision by Democrats. It's desperate. It's designed to try to go get Donald Trump because there's a large segment of the Democratic base that is driven insane by Donald Trump and doesn't behave in a logical fashion. They may well vote to impeach him in the House of Representatives. It's the dead on arrival when it gets to the Senate. And if anything, all it's going to do is validate Donald Trump's allegations that everybody in the swamp is allied against him, that he's the champion of the people, and that the reason he's being impeached is because people don't like the change that he has brought to Washington, D.C. It plays right into Donald Trump's hands. I think Donald Trump wants to be impeached here. That's why he had an ad already ready to put out the moment that Nancy Pelosi announced they were going to bring up impeachment proceedings. This helps Donald Trump. Now, people out there are like, oh, it's going to drive up Democratic turnout. Democratic turnout is mostly going to be driven up in states that aren't going to be close. Yes, more people may go vote in New York and California. Do you know what that matters? Not at all. This election, I've been saying for a while, is going to be decided very straightforwardly and simply in what happens in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Okay? You tell me how those 4 states are going to vote, and I'll tell you who the next president of the United States is going to be. Trump's going to win Ohio, I believe. I believe he's going to win Florida. So those 2 states are not going to be the battlegrounds that they have been before. Trump has shifted the battleground to the industrial Midwest. Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. That's where the election's going to be decided. Whoever is able to mobilize their base there, and I think this plays better with the white, blue-collar manufacturing base that Donald Trump turned out for himself. We'll wait and see who the Democrats end up nominating. But I think this impeachment disaster may well end up blowing up more on Joe Biden than anybody else. And I think Joe Biden's the best candidate that the Democrats can put forward. I think Trump will beat Elizabeth Warren. I think he would beat Kamala Harris. I think he would beat Mayor Pete. I think he would beat everybody that he's potentially going to run against, except for Joe Biden, who I think would beat Donald Trump. But I think this Ukraine thing is going to actually end up blowing up more on Joe Biden than it is Donald Trump. That's my prediction. That's the way that I would break down this scenario. I read the transcript or summary of that conversation. I don't see anything there at all. It's not as much as the Mueller case, and there wasn't anything in Mueller either. People are upset, Democrats, that Donald Trump won, and they are still trying to get him out of office, which confirms everything that he said. You want to get him out, you go get him out in November of 2020. This thing is going to drag into 2020 already. I don't understand the point of beginning impeachment proceedings while you're a year away from the election. I think this is going to strengthen Trump. I think Pelosi was smart to try to avoid doing this. Evidently, her base is demanding it now. Bad decision. This is going to be a huge mess. All right. I love all of you. If you enjoyed my show, share it. My name is Clay Travis. This is OutKick the Show. I try to be as straightforward and as honest with you guys as I possibly can be. Most people out there are going to be trying to spin you. They're trying to convince you of something one way or the other. I try to look at the facts and let those guide me. I do it every single day with every story that I follow. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. My name is Clay Travis. This has been OutKick the Show. I'll be live on Lock It In, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific, and obviously every morning, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on OutKick the Coverage, 300-plus affiliates nationwide. Welcome in Philadelphia and Detroit, who have just joined the OutKick family recently. Love you guys. Kisses. See y'all. Thank you. Love you, Facebook. See y'all.